organises that efficiency itself. Circular gaps repeat across the sound. They're known as fairy circles. Bare centres, grass gathered at the edges. The pattern stretches for kilometres. Why it forms is still a bit of a mystery.
I took my little brother to a job fair. Does anyone else have like a permanent mark near me?
Give me a ride, punk rock.
What's clear is that it limits how much life the land allows to grow.
My nigga walk a floor.
Good morning. How you doing today?
Then the desert stops allowing life at all. Deadvlay. A white clay pan surrounded by rust-red dunes. Dead trees stand upright, blackened trunks rooted in cracked earth.
On what?
They've been dead for over 600 years. A river once reached this basin, then dunes blocked its path, causing the water to vanish.
Well, I'm gonna say this.
The air is so dry that
I'm pretty sure I done told you this before, but it's probably like
collapse.
you don't listen. I got a lot of messages.
The dead trees remain.
I got a lot of messages on all platforms. The best platform to contact me is OnlyFans, and you might as well send a tip with it because that's the only way. I know. Did you send a tip with it?
Along the southern coast of Australia, limestone cliffs drop vertically into the ocean, some over 100 metres tall, extending
Nah, you
for
lying, because I would respond to it.
The Great Australian Bight. The cliffs are sheer, flat-topped, shaped by the constant southern swells that hammer the base.
All right.
Below the Southern Ocean.
If you sent a tip with a message on it, I would have responded. I know you did.
Antarctica. No islands, no shelter, just open water and westerly winds that circle the globe uninterrupted. This is where Australia ends. Yellowstone National Park sits on top of a supervolcano, a massive chamber of magma roughly 80 kilometres long, lying just beneath the surface. Close enough to heat the ground you walk on, close enough to shape everything above it. The heat escapes constantly.
How many heroes can Omni-Man take down in DC?
Geysers erupt on schedule. Hot
the Dark
springs
Knight
boil
recharges
in
belt.
vivid colour.
Bruce's gadgets mean nothing against a man who can fly through a planet's core. Hal Jordan's constructs would shatter under Nolan's relentless force. He is fast enough to outfly the ring's reaction time, turning the lantern into dust. rust. Arthur Curry might be tough, but
Grand
Omni-Man would
Prismatic
simply
Spring,
toss him into
the
the vacuum of
largest hot
space.
spring
The
in the
Sea
United
King has
States,
no defense against
stretches
Viltrumine's speed.
110
Diana
meters
is a warrior
across.
who could actually stand her ground against Nolan's brutality.
From
Her
above,
combat
its rainbow
skill and
rings are
magical weapons would likely
unmistakable
stop its
and
rampage.
iconic.
Barry Allen is too fast for Omni-Man to even perceive or catch. The Flash will phase through his attacks and strip his momentum instantly. This is where the carnage ends, because the Man of Steel is on another level. Superman's strength and durability would
The
allow him
colors
to take
aren't
Nolan's
minerals,
best
they're
hits in
bacteria.
a fight.
Heat-loving
John Jones would use his
microorganisms
telepathy
thrive
to
in
shut
water
Nolan's
hot
mind
enough to
down
scald
before a single
skin.
punch is thrown. How many heroes can
Today I'm going to show you how to remove and repair rust damage on your vehicle. We're going to go from this to
This
this.
heat
We're going to
feeds
stop
the
the spreading of the
ecosystem.
rust and make it look a lot better. The best part is you can do this at
Thermal
home
springs
yourself
keep water
inexpensively
flowing through
using
winter.
these products.
Wetlands remain ice-free. Grass grows where it shouldn't.
What's the deal? How you doing today? My day is all right. It's all right. Was gonna make some plans, but you know shit happens. I'm all
These
right.
do this if you these
I'm
products.
just
Get your
trying to get to
sandpaper,
this
your
money,
body.
man. You know.
YouTube, what is up guys? Today I'm going to show you how to fix big giant rust holes on cars. So this is an 07 Hyundai Accent with 200,000 miles on it, and I got this car for free from my brother-in-law John. And my car broke down; it was like totaled. And he's like, "Dude, I've been trying to sell this car for 2 years. No one's buying it. You can just have it." I was like, "Really? You sure?" It needed a bunch of repairs. Not a bunch, but it needed a little work. And then there's obviously some body things from it sitting. The rest of the car is actually in really good shape. This one area though is just a big, giant rust hole. Like you can just pull this stuff off. It's literally falling off. So we're gonna, do the old Bondo, repaint it, prime it, all that good stuff. So it's probably, if you're gonna do a job like this, probably gonna cost you about $100, to be completely honest. So we got two different types of Bondo body filler. We got the regular body filler, and then we got the Bondo glass. Then I also bought the resin as well as the fiberglass to really reinforce it. And then if that's not enough, I also bought the metal mesh as well. First thing we're gonna have to do is remove all the rust and sand everything really good. So you could do this by hand. You could use things like orbital sanders. We're gonna be doing a little bit of both. Then I also got a rust remover attachment for my drill for like $5, so that'll work really good. You're gonna need some gloves, some tape. You're gonna need your paint. I gotta order the paint for this car actually, the actual color. But you're gonna need some primer, some rust reformer. This will prevent the rust from coming back. And then you're definitely gonna need some like gloves, breathing, and eye protection. So this should be a lot of fun, and let's get into it. Alright, first thing I did was I took my rust remover attachment made by 3M onto my drill. I tried to jack on my car and take the wheel off, but the rust on the tire, I couldn't get it off. So I just went back to using my grinder and cut like 1.5 inches past the metal. And then I put these little Bondo metal sheets, something for this, just so the fiberglass could grab onto something. Now this fiberglass with the fiberglass resin was extremely hard to work with. It actually burnt holes in like 30 pairs of gloves. I went through so many gloves with this. It was a total mess. It gave my skin a rash when it got on me, and I'm not going to use it again. You can see here, I was getting so frustrated with this stuff. It is just so sticky, and it's such a pain to work with. And here I just decided to cut up some beer cans and shove them in here. Now, they're aluminum and it's metal, it doesn't rust, it's aluminum, so they're very flexible too, and actually I was able to form the shape of the fender pretty well with them, and I should have thought of this earlier. The concept's kind of the same as the metal Bondo patches, so to me I was like, why not try it out? It worked way easier than I thought it would, and then I kind of just used a little fiberglass resin to glue that in place. Now here I switch, do one more little layer of fiberglass resin, then I switch to the Bondo glass. This is a very thick version of Bondo. My buddy Mac came over, he's better at this than me, and he told me I was putting it on too light, to put it on heavier, so I could just sand it down after. And that seemed to work a lot better. Make sure you mix this stuff in small batches because it hardens very fast and you'll end up wasting a lot of it if you don't. But yeah, it's just like, plastering a wall. There's really nothing to it. This Bondo, is the very, very thick, harder one. It's got little pieces of strands of fiberglass in it. So you want to do this one first when you have big holes and stuff. So then after this we took an orbital sander, started at 100 grit, and then I moved to a 220 grit pad to smooth it out a little better. And then once you get that all smooth, I just wiped off the dust, and then we started putting on some regular Bondo. This is just your standard Bondo body filler. And this is easier to work with. It's a lot thinner. Sanded that down, same procedure, 100 to 220 grit with the orbital sander. It worked great. Make sure to look at all the body lines of the car and just get the best you can. This is Bondo Spot Putty. It's for like the little pin pricks. Then just kind of cleaned everything off with acetone and started priming it with regular old automotive primer. Now here, I'm using the paint I got off eBay, and I gave them my VIN number, my paint code, and everything, and it's not the right paint. They basically just gave me like a charcoal color, and my paint actually has like a blue tint to it, and it definitely was not the right color. So you'll see that in a minute. But it did actually go on really smoothly, and you know what, it looks better than, having a bunch of Bondo on the side of the car. This is just some automotive clear. I actually did 2 coats of this. I only show you one here. And here's the final product. Alright guys, so there is the finished product. Now, bad news is the color I had them mix actually doesn't match. So the source I got it from refunded me for it, but I think I'm gonna down the road just repaint the whole car. But this fixed the big massive rust hole, which is the expensive part in any body repair. Now normally I would wet sand this. You want to wait a day after the clear grit, and you're going to wet sand it starting at 1500 grit, working your way up to 3000 grit, and then polish it with wax. But since the color doesn't match, I'm not going to really even waste my time with that. I'll probably hit it with some wax in a couple days or so, but other than that, that's pretty much it. But I'm very happy with how the Bondo job and everything came out. Definitely not perfect, but for me never doing it before, really, really turned out pretty good. So, thank you guys for watching. If you're gonna try something like this, don't be intimidated. It just takes a lot of patience. And other than that, it was actually a lot of fun. And I'm looking forward to painting the whole car. So if this video gets over 100 likes, I'll paint the whole car using spray paint. And I'll do that, and if it doesn't look good, then I'll get it professionally painted. But I thought it'd be a fun thing to try out. So, yeah, I mean,
Welcome back to the 6th Gear Garage. Today, I'm going to show how to prep and repair this faded clear coat on the $350 Acura Legend. So this car came from out west, and you can see it had a hood brawl for most of its life. The paint still looks great on the front of the hood, but then look what years of UV rays and neglect did to the rest of the hood. This clear coat isn't just faded, parts of it have completely delaminated and flaked away. Once the UV resistant clear coat is gone, the color coat underneath begins to fade from the sun. So instead of just re-clearing, now I need to respray areas of color coat as well. The clear coat is bad on the roof too, and just really filthy in general. This car did sit for a decade before I bought it. When the clear gets these white splotchy areas, it has completely delaminated from the color coat. The only way to fix it at this point is sanding off the damaged clear and respraying. So the hood, fender, roof are bad. And the top of the doors. But look at the trunk. No delaminating of the clear coat on the trunk lid. I think I'll be able to bring this back with some polishing. The top surfaces soak up all the UV rays. The sides are fine. What do you think about these Enkei EK90 wheels? Yay or nay? I'm doing a quick test getting the faded clear coat wet. I can still see some splotchiness on the roof. Still see it here on the fender. And of course, it's really bad on the hood. A coat of water on the paint shows what it would look like if I just spray clear over the existing surface. And I can see that's not going to work. There's a line here where the bra was. It's not just the clear that's faded, it's the red as well. Now that it's wet, I can tell the rest of the hood is a little more pink. Then of course, it's really faded where there's no more clear. First, let's give it a bath with some dish soap. If there's any wax left on here, this will take it off. Found a helper. He works hard for 15 animal crackers per hour. Now this is what the paint's going to look like when I'm all done. Check out the trunk with water on it. That's good news. I bet I can bring this back without having to re-clear it, if it looks this good with water on it. Some kind of mold on it. The water's starting to dry, and it's back to doo-doo finish. I pulled in the garage where there's better lighting, and I can see all kinds of crud on the paint, like this and this. So I have an old clay bar here, almost out of spray. Used most of this on the Mustang, but any other detail spray should work as well. This has to be like 15 years old. Clay bar will help remove the contaminants from the surface before I start working on it. Spray on some lube, aka detail spray. Then rub the clay. Working in maybe a 2 foot by 2 foot area. This spot isn't coming out. Let's take a look at what the clay bar picked up. Look at all that crud and debris. I'll do the rest of the hood off camera. I did half of the trunk lid, and if you look really close, focus, there's all kinds of white debris stuck to the paint, and it's all over the place. There's this black stuff again that doesn't want to come off. I don't know if this is like a mold or mildew, but it's all over. Some of it came off. It just took some elbow grease. That's getting better. More scrubbing. All right, I did the whole car with the clay bar. This can all be polished out. So can this. The area under the hood bra could be saved, but the rest of the hood is gone. You can see this is actually the color coat on the clay bar. It came off in the area where the clear is missing. So the hood will need color and clear. Same for the roof. It's going to need some color touch-up in some areas, then the whole thing re-cleared. The clay bar leaves this slurry mess, but it comes off with a good wash. Alright, I pulled the car back in the garage, and I want to show you something under these lights. Right now the surface is wet. Water doesn't bead at all because there's no wax at all in this paint. But how it looks wet right now is exactly how it would look if I were to just clear coat as is. You can see there's a night and day difference on the areas where the clear coat is completely gone. And that's thanks to the color coat fading without that UV protection from the clear coat. Red actually fades the most from UV rays. That's why some red cars turn pink as they get old. So I need to spray some fresh red on the hood and on the roof. But most of the roof is fine, so I'll try to blend it in. Here too. Top edge of the doors. And part of this fender has the clear delaminating, so I'll need to touch up the red on that before re-clearing as well. Passenger fender looks good. I think I can bring that back with paint correction. Since I was going to be doing color and clear already, I took some time to repair scratches on the bumpers and get them ready for paint. I already have a full video from the $500 Toyota Camry where I showed how to repair a damaged bumper and paint it to match. So I'll put a link to that how-to in the description to try and keep this video short. Since I'll be doing the top edge of the doors, I'll just pull off this trim. Given the choice of masking off or removing trim, it's always better to remove it if you can and avoid a tape line. This trim is in rough shape anyways, so I'll restore this in a future video, getting it looking new again before I put it back on the car. Hey, we are back at it. Had to take a break to work on another project. I just gave the car another bath to wash off any dust or dirt from sitting in the pole barn. And today, I'm going to be doing some wet sanding. I ordered some wet or dry sandpaper. I'll put a link in the description. And this is 800 grit. I have a couple sanding blocks here, but for this job, I'm going to use these two. We'll look at those in a minute. I'm going to be wet sanding the entire surface with the 800 grit paper, including this area. This needs to be a smooth, flat transition from clear to no clear. I'm going to do my best to blend all this with red touch-up aerosol cans before I re-clear the entire hood. Same with this fender and roof. The tops of the doors are delaminating. All these areas need to be sanded with 800 grit. For a flat area, I'm using this stiffer block. This flexible sponge is better for curved areas. Just wrap the paper around the block and dunk it in the water. Then start sanding back and forth. You can see the water is turning white. That's the clear coat being removed from the 800 grit. Look, I've got some color on there too. That's from the area that didn't have any clear coat. Give it a dunk every minute and drop some water on the surface to keep things wet. It's good to switch up the direction too. It seems to sand a little faster and more evenly. You can see all this pink water. That's the red color combined with the white clear. I want to make sure I get this delaminated area all the way smooth. It can take a while. The paper loses some grit after a while, so I'm flipping it around so there's a fresh side facing out. And that'll have more bite than the used area. Now 800 sands kind of fast. The lower the number, the more abrasive it is. If the paper is too low, it'll leave scratches too deep that won't be filled in by the paint, and you'll see them when the paint's all done. If I use too high of a grit, there won't be enough scratches in the surface for the new paint to bite to, and I run the risk of the paint not bonding well and peeling in the future. So 800 is kind of the sweet spot. Take a look at this. This is the factory primer showing beneath the red. The color coat isn't very thick on most vehicles compared to the clear. And that's alright because I'm going to spray more color. But if your clear isn't delaminating like mine is, then you don't need to respray the color before applying new clear. So you don't want to go this far. The transition and the delaminated area is feeling pretty smooth now. I've got these tiny spots that still need sanded though. I've almost sanded them out. Watch this. And they're gone. I've got a few more down here. The tiny spots are starting to delaminate, so I can't paint over it. Because eventually it will get worse and lift from the base and cause the new paint on top to peel off with it. It is a lot of work and elbow grease to do this the right way. This area in the middle here is good to go. It looks like there are still dots, but they aren't white dots where the clear is lifting. It's actually those areas of delamination where I've sanded smooth, and now you can see where the color is faded in those spots. So feel it with your fingers, because although it may not look smooth, it might be perfect. Like all this is smooth, even though it looks splotchy. This does make a mess. Strawberry milkshake. Now I just have to sand the rest of the hood. When it comes to these curved areas of the hood, I can't sand these evenly with a rigid block, or else I'll only sand the top edge. That's where I'm going to use this flexible sanding sponge that I showed earlier. Wrap it up just like I did with the block, and it flexes to match this contour. I'll have links in the description for the sanding block and this sponge. Just go back and forth in different directions. Don't forget the very corner. Just be careful on edges because they're very easy to sand through. It's natural to apply more pressure on an edge or any raised area that isn't flat. I'm actually using an older piece of 800 grit right now because a used piece of sandpaper doesn't cut as fast as a brand new sheet. That kind of gives me a little more room for error. This back edge rolls over, so I'm very lightly sanding that contour, being careful not to go through. But it does need to be sanded for the paint to bond well. It doesn't take much pressure when there's so little surface area. One more pass with my fingers, just in case I missed any areas with the sponge, and the very corner. Clean this off a little and let it dry. Okay, this is dry now, and you can see, well, my finger's wet. If you look close, you can see a thin line on the edge that didn't get sanded well. It looks a little darker because it isn't scuffed up. I'm going to hit that part real quick with the 800. Everything has to be sanded so the new clear coat will stick. I couldn't tell when it was all wet, but once it dries, it's easy to see any areas that didn't get sanded well. And again, I'm doing this with old, dull paper, so it's less likely that I'll sand through the raised edge. Throw some water on the hood, and I can use the sponge as a squeegee to remove some of this sanding residue and dry the surface. And that will help me see if I missed any areas when I sanded. I don't have a drain in my garage, and I don't want to wash it outside every time. Alright, here's the worst area. Now, all cleaned up, completely sanded smooth with the 800 grit paper. Notice there's no glossy area showing. It's hard to tell if you missed any parts when it's wet, but when it's dry, you'll be able to tell if you missed any area sanding, because it'll be glossy, like this. I put a piece of tape on the top edge of this fender to protect it from the sandpaper because I'm not re-clearing it. This way, I can sand all the way to the very edge of the hood without having to worry about accidentally scuffing up the fender with 800 grit paper. I did the same thing on the driver's door here, so I can sand all the way to the edge of the fender. If you look really close, you can see there's a shiny area on each side of this thin scuffed area. Those are both low points that the block doesn't contact. The clear coat comes up a little higher near the very edge. I'll have to sand that part with my finger instead of the block. The rest of the fender is coming along. Right here it's shiny. I was being careful not to sand the edge too much, and I didn't sand it enough. Anywhere it's shiny, the paint won't bond well. Right here too. Look over everything in a well-lit area. I gotta knock that down a little bit more. Right now I just sanded down the factory orange peel. Then I sanded the entire roof with the 800 grit paper. Did I mention this makes a mess? I got the hood done. Roof is done. It was a nice sunny day, so I pulled the car outside for a much needed bath. I'm sanding the top of the doors to paint them as well. I put tape over the chrome trim so I can sand right up to the edge of the paint without worrying about scratching it. Here's something I might as well fix. A huge chip in the paint that goes all the way down to the primer. Now's a good time to fill that in before I apply the touch-up color coat. I've got some primer and a little brush, just the right size for a paint chip, and a cap. Then, just apply a few coats of primer to make it level. So, when you're clear coating panels, it's best to do the entire panel when possible, like the hood, roof. I'll be doing the entire rear bumper, front bumper as well. I'll be doing this whole top section of the fender. The rest of this side isn't going to be painted, except for I need to paint the top of these doors. The clear was just starting to delaminate, so I'll be blending color and then re-clearing. But then how do I blend it back into the lower part of the body? With this Spray Max Spot Blender. I've never used this before, but I've heard a lot of good reviews about it. So I'm excited to try it out. What the Spot Blender does is make a clean transition from the new clear into the factory clear. A lot of times you can end up with a halo or a haze where the two clears fade into each other. So the new clear will start heavy and then fade into the factory clear. And the blender smooths out the transition from new to old clear for a seamless transition. I've already sanded with 800 grit. Next I'll do 1000, then 1200, then 1500. And finally 2000 all the way down this C-pillar to the factory clear. Then, as I'm clearing this, I'll fade it out towards the bottom. Then, spray the blender on that transition area. Like I said, I've never used this stuff before, but I did a lot of research and a lot of painters swear by it. So, we'll see how it works. This can was about $20 shipped on Amazon. I'll put a link in the description. I'll be using the blender on the A-pillars as well, down where they meet the rest of the door panel. It's important to mark the area with each grit so I can tell where they start and finish for an even transition on both sides. And I'll be stopping before this body line. All this trim around the windows is staying on because they're held on with brittle plastic clips. So I'll be masking off all those with tape. This car has a lot of trim, but the rest will be easy to mask off. The lights and grille, I'll pull when I remove the bumper. Already popped the corner light out when I sanded. Pulled the chrome trim, so I don't have to mask that. already took the lip off the bumper, trying to avoid tape lines where I can. But there's some things that just aren't worth taking apart on a car this old when plastic clips get brittle with age. So the paper I'm using for the blend area is 800 grit, then 1000 grit, then 1200 grit, then 1500 grit, and finally 2000 grit, which is fine enough to polish out with the right compound. First, I threw some tape over the chrome trim so I wouldn't scratch it with the sandpaper. Then I sanded each area I marked off with the corresponding sandpaper from 800 to 2000 grit, and let it dry to check for any glossy areas that I might have missed. I've washed this car more times in the past few weeks than it's been washed in the past decade. I'm getting it all cleaned up. I'm about ready to paint it now. How it looks right now when it's wet is exactly how it's going to look with a fresh clear coat. Of course, I'm going to be touching up the faded areas with some fresh color. Look at that smooth glass finish. That's what I'm shooting for. Hopefully it looks that good when I'm all done. This metallic red is called Persian Red Pearl. It really pops in the sun. Alright, I've got the car back in the garage. I'm going to look it over one more time to make sure it's ready to mask off. I've got the bumpers over there. I'll start with those. These old Honda bumpers need a lot of masking because they're not fully painted from the factory. So I used a variety of different thicknesses of tape. This tape is probably the best because it's like plastic, so it really adheres to the surface a little better than your typical paper masking tape, like the blue tape rolls you might find at the hardware store. It's made by 3M Scotch, and it's designed for automotive use. It's not cheap, but it works awesome because it's easy to make it curve as it goes down. I'll put links in the description. The really thin 1/8 inch tape is great for the curved areas. Then, once I have the edge masked, I put on a regular piece of tape with paper over that. The bottom of the bumper isn't even visible when the lip's installed, but I don't want to see red overspray every time I'm under there changing the oil. Next, I wipe the bumpers down with some wax and grease remover. I use PPG DX330 in a lot of my other videos, but I'm almost out, so I used some Prep Ball, which seemed to work just as well as the PPG, and it was only about 1/3 of the price. I'll put a link for the Prep Ball in the description. Next, I wipe down all the surfaces on the vehicle I'll be painting as well. Hood, roof, and fender. Check this out. I messed up here, but now I can show you how to fix a common mistake. That's bare plastic. I sanded it all the way through the paint and primer. It happened in a few spots where there were high points. And paint doesn't bond to plastic. So I've got some adhesion promoter to fix that. Make sure it's spraying nice first. Alright, and just a quick spray. That's all you need. Here we go. Quick spray, and good. Done. 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 It's clear, it dries fast, and it makes paint bond to plastic. This is a great product. I'll put a link in the description. In addition to those areas of plastic showing, I also have some body fillers showing. This white area here. The gray is the filler primer, but I'm going to use some primer sealer over this because sometimes color coat can appear splotchy over body filler. Primer sealer will give consistent results under the base coat, aka color coat. Primer sealer is a good idea over a surface like this bumper. I'll put a link for this in the description as well. Do a light coat here, light coat here. Anywhere I see that body filler showing through. This bumper was pretty beat up. So I'm just hitting the repair areas quick to get a uniform surface. Then I applied a second coat. Next, I hosed down the floor and squeegeed out all the water to remove any dirt or dust that could kick up when I'm painting. I went over all the steps to convert a residential garage into a paint booth when I sprayed the Ford Edge parts last year. I'll put a link to that video in the description. Then I masked off all the areas of the car I wasn't painting. I already talked about the tape I'm using. When you're painting entire vehicles, you may want to invest in some masking paper. It comes in different sized rolls and it's a lot easier, faster, and cleaner than newspaper. If you plan on painting more than a couple times, it's worth it. I'll put some links in the description. Okay, the whole car is masked off. You saw I just ran it under the hood. Everywhere else is taped off. I used the 1/8 inch for the curves, the thicker tape for the straight areas, taped up all the seams, don't want any overspray. I had the fender on the stand, but hung it back on the car for paint. Got the back covered as well. I've got this man door propped open a little. All the fumes and overspray will go out through that door. There's a very slight breeze today. It should all just blow out that way. The temp is in the 70s. I've got low humidity. Should be a good day to paint. I've been talking about all these areas on the hood where the clear coat delaminated and came off, which then caused the color coat to fade from the sun. I need to apply more color here to match the rest. And to do that, I have some custom mixed touch-up aerosol cans. I bought these online. There it is, Honda R65P Persian Red Pearl. I ordered these two first. Then I decided I better order one more just in case I needed it, as my repair areas kept growing as I fixed up the bumpers too. They were about $30 each from eBay. Had I known I was going to end up needing this much, I would have just bought a quart and sprayed it with the gun. One more thing I need to do is wipe this down to remove any dust or dirt that landed on it since I cleaned it with the wax and grease remover. And for that, I have a tack cloth. This is just a thin cloth and it's kind of sticky on both sides. I like to just unfold it all the way like a napkin, ball it up, and wipe everything down. You don't need to press hard, just real light pressure. Here's the first touch-up can for the color. I just popped the cap and there's some paint dried on the tip of the nozzle. Not sure why that happened, must have leaked a little, but I can scrape that off. Should be good now. Give it a test spray. And okay. This isn't going well. It's just gushing out from the base of the nozzle. Oh man. And it just shot the tip off. Best blooper ever. Clearly that nozzle was clogged with paint. And the other two cans look the exact same way. I'm going to let them soak in some paint thinner for a while. Just some regular old thinner here that I've had forever. Murphy's Law in full effect today. For lacquers and urethanes that I'm using today, you don't want oil-based thinner made with mineral spirits. This is for thinning enamel paints, which you might have seen me use in the wheel restoration video. After 10 minutes of soaking and stirring in the thinner, the nozzle works now. Now you can see I need the most paint right here in this area, and I'm going to feather it out to blend it in. Nozzle's still good. I'm doing light coats. It's going to take a few before this starts to cover. And it's still leaking at the base. I'm just going to wrap a towel around here. That should catch any drips so it doesn't drip on the car. You guys always comment. Thanks for leaving in the bloopers and showing how to work around them. We've got plenty today. There's the hood after one coat of color. Now I'll do the A-pillar. It's important to keep shaking the can, especially if you have a metallic color like this. There we go. That actually covered pretty well. And the roof. Then I just repeated the same on the other side. That was close. I almost had a big drip on the painting surface, which there's really no simple or easy way to fix that. So this defective aerosol can is really making me nervous as I'm painting. In hindsight, I should have just bought a quart and applied it with a spray gun instead of trying to blend with these aerosol cans. It wouldn't have cost much more, and it would have been a lot less of a headache. Just follow the contour of the bumper for an even coat. And this is dripping all over the floor. Looks like somebody got stabbed in here. It's been about 10 minutes. Time to lay down the second coat. Seems good. Ah, it's leaking again. I think I'm fleeing off more paint than I'm spraying. It's starting to cover a little bit. Look at that. It's starting to look like a zombie apocalypse in here. Then I came back for the third coat using one of the Paint My Ride cans, and it didn't leak at all. And then the fourth coat. I feathered each coat out a little farther than the previous coat to blend in the new paint with the old. The repair area was still a little light, so I did another coat on it. It's looking good, but some of the primer was still showing. The bumper is looking pretty good. I can still see a little splotchiness in the bright light from the repair areas. I didn't bother painting the very bottom here because you're not going to see it. I'm running low on paint. I bet half that first can leaked out as I was trying to spray it. All the faded areas up here, they are now looking good. I'm happy with this. This all blended in nice here. I could use a little more paint on the hood. I can barely see the repair area in the right light. It's a little splotchy. Never mind the glossy versus dull areas. That will all be glossy later after the clear coat. Here's what's left of the third can. Every bit counts. I'm just doing an overall light coat here to blend everything together. Also, with metallic colors, it can prevent tiger striping. The can spitting. I'm about done. Put the last little bit on here. I wish I had about another half can. I did not account for the one leaking all over. Lesson learned. Well, it is what it is for a $350 car. On to the clear coat. I'm going to keep this short and speed through this part. I mentioned the how to spray automotive paint in your garage video earlier in this video, and I highly recommend you check it out. I explained everything I'm doing here, including the mixing ratios for the color and the clear coat, as well as how to set up and properly adjust the spray gun. I'll have a link for you in the description. One last check, and we're good to go. Hey, real quick, I am not a professional painter. I'm just an average Joe working out of his garage with some old spray equipment. If you're looking for how to paint a show car, you might want to find someone with top-of-the-line equipment and a downdraft paint booth. If you're a regular guy looking for a budget paint job out of a residential garage, then I can show you a thing or two. If you are a pro and you're watching this video and see something very wrong, please let me know, because a lot of what I've learned came from working with a professional painter, and I'm always looking to improve my skills. Notice I'm holding the hose with my other hand so it doesn't drag on the car. The first coat is just a mist coat. No need to go heavy on the clear until the very last coat. I'm doing the passenger side first since I can't reach all the way across. Starting in the middle and working my way toward the edge. Now the driver's side. I adjusted the pressure there. It was a little low after I started spraying. Just back and forth. Following the contour of the car. Getting that edge on the back of the hood where it meets the cowl. And you can see each pass overlaps the previous pass by about halfway. And same for the bumpers. Spray from all different angles to reach all the different contours. In these smaller, tight areas, I move the gun faster to prevent too much paint from spraying on the surface, because that will cause runs or sags. I used more than half of the first batch of clear, so I'm mixing some more here. Just mix clear and hardener ratios according to the instructions. I cover that in the full video I mentioned earlier. Time for clear coat number 2. There's a bug on the surface. Got it. The downside of not doing this in a paint booth. Get the edge of the hood, just like last time. You might notice the surface is starting to look a little rough. That's called orange peel, and I think the temperature was a little on the warm side. So the clear is starting to dry before it has a chance to self-level on the surface. It's not what you want, but it can be corrected through wet sanding and polishing. That just requires extra time and elbow grease. I didn't have orange peel in the how to paint in your garage video, so now I can show how to take care of that. That's it for the second coat of clear. Here's how it's going so far. I got some pretty rough orange peel. I'm hoping a heavy wet coat will level some of that out. I think either way I'll be wet sanding. Now on the C-pillar here, I'm going to be fading the new clear out and then hitting that with the spot blender by Spray Max. And I'm going to do that on the last coat. Bumpers look better, not as much orange peel. They'll benefit from a nice wet coat as well. Coat 3, the wet coat. Notice how slow I'm moving the gun. I'm laying the clear down heavy. And there's nothing to worry about on the horizontal surfaces like the roof or hood. It's the vertical surfaces that you have to be careful on because, as we'll see, I did get a run on the fender. Slow and even. And yes, my arm was starting to get tired. I'm doing the same in front of the sunroof. With all the problems I had with aerosol cans, I completely forgot to blend the A-pillars on the coloring clear coats. It slipped my mind, and I didn't realize I planned on using the blender there until I was all done. So I'll be able to show a comparison of blender versus no blender when the car's all finished. I was going so heavy on the hood, and it was starting to look better. In addition to filling in some of the orange peel, I know for sure that I'll have plenty of clear to wet sand without worrying about sanding all the way through to the color coat. Looking back at this now, I could have gone a little slower in some areas and filled in a little bit more of the orange peel. And right about now, I thought I'd see how much clear I had left. And it wasn't enough to finish the wet coat. I topped off the gun with clear coat and got back to that extra heavy wet coat on the other side of the roof. Again, with everything that was going on, I completely forgot to blend the A-pillar. To blend the C-pillar, I went heavy at the top and then faded the clear downward so it would be thinner at the bottom, almost like a mist coat. Then fanned the blender so that it was heavy at the bottom and then got lighter toward the top. And then put the wet coat on the fender. And that's looking a lot better after a nice wet coat. I already did the bumpers off camera and was really happy with the way those turned out. All right, it feels good to be done with all of this. Let's see how it turned out. Bumpers first, because I'm really impressed with the finish on these. Minimal orange peel. I'm not even going to have to wet sand these. I love the way wet paint looks. The rear bumper came out great as well. Smooth and glossy. I'm glad I refinished the bumpers. They were kind of beat up. Oh, look at that. I've got a run here. Those vertical surfaces will get you. But I'll show how easy it is to sand those out. These bumper pieces look good. Oh wait, look. There's a lot of dirt on that one. That can be wet sanded and polished too. Now the C-pillar turned out perfect. The new clear blended in perfect. Spray Max Blender is the way to go. Yeah, a lot of dirt on the roof. One of my neighbors started mowing as I was doing the clear. I wonder if that's where a lot of the dirt came from. The orange peel isn't bad, but I am going to have to wet sand to get rid of those imperfections. And that slight amount of orange peel while I'm at it. Now, here's where I had a big run. See it there? I went too heavy on the vertical surface and it ran right down. So I was showing how to wet sand that out. I'm definitely going to wet sand the entire hood. In addition to some orange peel, some dirt got on it too. These turned out great. And then the passenger seat pillar, I was a little light toward the bottom, but that should be fine after some wet sanding and polish. It's still a little sticky. Almost time to remove the tape. I like to remove the tape before the paint is dry, so it's